Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Horrible People Podcast. I'm Jenn McDonald, and the horrible person that I'm speaking with today is Mark Hull. I met Mark at the Conservative Outdoor Caucus Outdoor Symposium this summer. Mark, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where you come from and all that?
You bet. I live in Cranbrook, British Columbia, which is in the southeast corner of the province by the Rocky Mountains are right there. So Alberta, Montana, and BC kind of all joined. That's home base for me. This is where I was born, grew up most of my life here, and operate Blood Origins Canada from studio at home. And I hunt a lot.
You are pro hunting. That is good.
Absolutely.
So Blood Origins is a fairly new organization, right?
1 year in August.
Okay. And how did that come to be? Like, were you there from the very beginning, or did you get brought in later? Did you start it?
So Curtis and I started the Hunter Conservationist Podcast. I think we're like seventh season now. Back.
Okay. How many years has that been? Because I've known like that podcast before I met you.
I think we started in 2018.
Oh,
Interestingly enough, it was in 2017 in BC when all of the hoopla over the grizzly bear hunt in British Columbia kind of dominated the airwaves, gave me the motivation to start. I started with a blog, with writing. People kind of liked my perspectives and views, and then we segued that into the podcast. So we'd been running the Hunter Conservationist Podcast, guests from all over. About just trying to remember now. Time flies. Quite a few years ago, Robbie Kroger, from Blood Origins, founder and executive director, was a guest. We brought him on as a guest on our show. Just like, hey, what are you about? Because we just kind of discovered him. Then he invited me over the years on some of his Roundup podcasts. We were talking about science around cougar hunting and depredation kills in California, years before the proposition in Colorado kind of happened the past year. Then we had him on the show again. He had me back on his show. So about a year and a half ago, getting close to two years ago, Robbie had me on one of his shows. We talked about some trending news stories. Afterwards, we had a conversation where basically he was like, I'm looking to expand, to grow Blood Origins by region, by country in the world. We've been watching what you do, and basically what you do in Canada is the same thing we do worldwide. Are you interested in becoming the face of Blood Origins Canada?
Wow.
So it took us about a year, well over a year, to get all the pieces in place. We have a legal agreement. Then we co-founded the Blood Origins Canada Foundation. It's a registered non-profit, federally registered corporation in Canada. So we had to create the separate entity. So Blood Origins Canada Foundation is the full legal name. We're an entity in Canada, but we are essentially like an affiliate, a chapter, a branch, whatever you want to call it. We're part of the global Blood Origins family, and we were the first global expansion that is going to grow. You will see other people around the world start to become a face for their country or region like me. So we were the first step.
Amazing.
So we were also the guinea pigs to be like, how does this work? What is an agreement? Who does what? Kind of thing. So it, for the most part, it was super easy, super simple. We think alike. Robbie and I get along like, so that's as a business, that's awesome. So I think we're going to make it super easy for future countries or regions to come on stream with us. So
Do you have any current countries or regions that you're able to talk about that might be interested in joining?
Well, there are people in Australia that are like part of Blood Origins, New Zealand, as well. But they haven't like officially become like what we have, like as an independent. We're part of the Blood Origins Canada is part of the Blood Origins family, but it's kind of like, we have a brand, a follow, an ethos. We talk through ideas, but we also have the latitude to do what it takes to do our job here in Canada. So that's not quite in place in other regions of the world yet. So we're slowly getting there. Robbie tends to be the face of every other country and region in the world. And he's slowly getting forced by his family to start bringing more people on board. So
a little extra help. I can see that.
Absolutely.
So what is Blood Origins? What do you guys do? What do you represent?
So our overarching mission is to convey the truth around hunting.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. And a tagline of that is, the true heart of hunters. So the background behind it is that the narrative of what hunting is and who hunters are as people, moral character, that sort of thing, was being lost to the rest of society, to the anti-hunting community. And part of Robbie's driver was to reclaim that. Hunters will tell the world who they are and what's in their heart, why they hunt, and we will work to convey the truth about hunting. Put out the facts, put out the information, put out the op-eds, put out the analysis of, hunting, and tell the true story, and combat myths and disinformation and lies about who hunters are and what hunting is.
The cold hard facts.
The cold hard facts. So, it's like, if you want to put it like, we're like a media company.
Okay.
We're in that business of conveying information. A lot of the films are conveying information and facts through story that touches people emotionally and gets, the points across. But we're not in the traditional hunting industry space of like, here's the five things you need to do to get a big buck this year. The 4 mistakes that you're making goose calling this reason, the reason you're not going to bag a big Bruin this spring. What is the best bino harness of 2024? Like people love that stuff. It's important to making your decisions about hunting and being a better hunter. But like,
it exists
this space is out there. There's so many experts that are helping people from everything from, bootlaces to sighting in a rifle. But in order for all of that to persist in society, to accept hunting, governments to continue to fund and enable and make choices about utilizing their wildlife resource for hunting tourism for the people, we had to get into that arena and fight that. So that's kind of the space that we operate in.
I think that's really important because, I don't know of too many organizations or pages or anything like that just, share the facts so that people that don't understand or don't like hunting can learn, factually who we are, what we do, why we do it. And also, I think it gives hunters tools to kind of fight back whenever they're being attacked by people that are anti-hunting.
And that's a tremendous amount of, what we do, as well as putting stuff, information, perspectives, ways of looking at it to provide the ammunition to the hunters that follow us. Because, you probably encountered this, like, you'll get a really good speaker, will have like a 2-minute little video and explain something about why they hunt or whatever. And people are like, that is right on. That's exactly how I feel. It's exactly why I do this. I just didn't know how to explain it or
Yeah.
articulate it right. There's a few key people out there that can pull that stuff together and put it out there in a way where everybody's like, exactly what he said, what she said. So when it comes to facts and infographics and what's really actually going on, are elephants actually endangered in these countries and stuff, and that's information that people in their day-to-day lives, at work, with their families or whatever, can be like, actually, hang on a second here. So
Yeah, and presenting
and
it to those people properly, like, comes
yeah.
across so much easier.
Yeah, exactly. So we're a resource that way. We want
Amazing.
to, spread the information, because the real armies out there, like, it's like, it's like the generals, they're on the horses behind the front, but they've had to do everything to make sure, organized, right formations, right equipment, right strategy, everybody understands. And then, it's kind of a horrible analogy, but sort of like going to war, right? Like, if somebody's out there at the front going, well, they're charging at us, what's this pointy stick for? Do I go left? Do I go right? And that's kind of a
That makes sense, I think. Absolutely. And the Hunter Conservationist podcast, that seems to touch on a wide range of topics, throughout the hunting community. So what's the kind of, agenda for that? Or
so the mission of
the mission, that's the word I was looking for.
The mission of the Hunter Conservationist podcast was always basically to convey information, have conversations with leading thinkers in the field of wildlife science, conservation, and hunting in Canada.
Okay.
So and that's
very much what Blood Origins.
Very much, very much.
So they were right when they said you're doing that.
Yeah,
and
the advocacy work, outside of that, standing up for hunters and hunters' family, and the truth about hunting in Canada. And so that's the Hunter Conservationist podcast, which we started. We maintained the brand, so it's like a merger of brands. The Hunter Conservationist Podcast is the flagship podcast for Blood Origins Canada. Okay. We didn't lose the brand, we didn't lose the name. That's still there as part of the history and growth of this voice in Canada. So it's funny because people have said that to me, that one of the things they love about the show. So the two things they love about the show: one is they listen to our podcast because they want to learn something. They're not there to be entertained. It's almost like it's people's that are interested in hunting and conservation. It's their opportunity for professional development and personal growth. They're there to learn something. If they want to be entertained and laugh and like whatever, they go to the other podcasts or whatever. Yeah. And, like, hey, remember when you fell down and your gun went off and, or you missed the goose, or, like whatever. That's, that's entertainment. And that's part of the hunting industry as well. People have fun and laugh, and, it's just part of everything we do. But they listen to us to learn. Yeah. And so we've taken that to heart. And the other thing that somebody has said, I never know what to expect when a new episode comes out from you guys. It's like one day you're talking about like trapping, and the next thing it's like somebody that keeps fit for hunting by doing yoga. It's just like, snowshoe hares or grizzly bears. It's just like
it's covering everybody. It's
everything.
Great.
And and we try to be coast to coast to coast because this is Canada. We've covered stories, Nunavut and seals in Newfoundland, and
like literally everywhere, BC,
everything. So I love it. I love it. It's a personal growth exercise for me too. Yeah. Like, it's like I'm learning. Every podcast is like a classroom, and it's like, wow, that is so cool.
Me too. I mean, even when doing these interviews, I learned so much from literally every single person I speak to. Either it's their perspective or they're giving me information that I just didn't know. And It's
Mm-hmm,
phenomenal.
mm-hmm. It's a great journey. And as a host, I've always taken that. It's like I'm doing this podcast to learn from these people. Listeners are coming along on that journey. My primary role as the host is to make sure that the information is coming across so the listeners go, oh, I get it.
Totally.
Especially when it's scientists or whatever. And it's like, I'd be like, okay, is that sort of like, um,
Put
like,
into layman's terms.
yeah, it's kind of like when you put a beer can on a fence post and then like the wind knocks it over. Yeah, it's exactly the same. And people are like, oh, now I got it,
Oh,
right? So
yeah,
that's part of my job as well.
that's nice too, because sometimes they just get the science or the political, jammer,
And
and it's hard to
jargon and
understand that.
stuff.
Yep, totally. And that podcast seems to branch out, right? Because do you guys also do the truth about fur through that podcast?
Yeah, so the Hunter Conservationist Podcast has almost become like almost like a channel. So under the podcast platforms, it's the Hunter Conservationist Podcast. It has its own episode, the Hunter
Yeah.
Conservationist Podcast, but then there's a bunch of podcasts that hang underneath of that. The new Truth About Fur podcast with Doug, who was just on the show, is one of them. We have another one called Our Stories Connect Us All, which
Yes.
is
Okay.
just stories of individual people. And it's like, why did you get into hunting? What does this mean to you? Like just that's that part, like what's in the heart of a hunter? Who is a hunter? That's that story. And through personal experiences of others, where we connect as people because we see ourselves in others when those stories are told. We
Yeah.
have the Around Canada podcast, which is like a news show. What's been going on in Canada in wildlife conservation and hunting, and we just cover all the trending news stories. And it's a place that people can come in 30, 40 minutes to 60 minutes. They can listen while they're driving and go, I know what's happened the last couple of weeks all over Canada.
That is so handy because like things move so fast politically and news-wise. It's so hard to keep up.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of like like a service, to keep people educated, informed. And then I throw in I have a short series called Short Truths. So 5, 6, 8 minutes long about a little topic. It's also on the YouTube channel. So I just have little questions. What is fair chase hunting? And then little 5 minutes, on that. So they're just again short little pulses of information where people can go, oh, that's a good explanation of trophy hunting or predator management or this or that. And 5 minutes, they can then again arm themselves to talk to their friends, family, and coworkers. And then under the channel,
easy if it's short like that.
Yeah, and that's part of this game too. It's like there's long content, there's medium content, there's video content, there's 2 minutes, there's 40 minutes.
There's something for everybody.
Absolutely, and different times.
Okay.
I got 5 minutes to run down and pick the kids up from school. 5-minute podcast, bang, that one's done. I got to drive for 4 hours. I'm going to download 3 of the podcast episodes and they're each an hour long or something like that, right? So
yeah, that's true.
It helps. It helps.
Definitely.
And then lastly, occasionally I throw in like what I call like a special podcast on a special topic, the North American model of wildlife conservation. There was like a standalone special podcast. I'm just finished releasing a chapter of 3, almost like an ebook on the history of hunting and conservation in Canada, which goes all the way back to the 1400s to help explain why we're at where we are today in Canada. And I have a new one that'll be coming out probably in about a month, which is Canada's Conservation Heroes.
Oh, very neat. Okay, I can't wait. What's that one going to be? Are you able to sort of give us more detail about that one?
Yeah, the background on that one is in the broader hunting community. If you ask any Canadian, name a key figure in history who was important to the history of conservation and hunting, they will all name Americans. Theodore Roosevelt, Alda Leopold, all these names will come out. And it's like, yes, they were leaders. They had a huge influence on hunting and conservation in the United States. Some of them did influence policy and people in Canada, and there were people in Canada that collaborated with folks in the United States. There was actually a secret society of wildlife biologists that wanted to improve people's understanding of conservation. Alda Leopold was that, and there was actually a Canadian scientist professor from the University of British Columbia who was in a secret society with Alda Leopold. So, there's in my mind, Canadians can't name Canadian conservation heroes. So I'm like, we did a lot of things that actually changed the course of North American conservation and hunting history. And we collaborated with Americans on stuff, but I wanted people to understand who are the Canadian giants' shoulders who we currently stand on.
I can't wait to hear that one.
I think I think I go through 5 of who I thought were the most prominent historical figures that changed the face of conservation in Canada. So
amazing. Hunting goes so deep into our culture, and I feel like we're kind of losing that. So it'll be really nice to at least learn the history and be able to learn more about the people that were like our founding fathers.
I think so, and that's one of my goals, and it's important because we do have to know our roots. We do have to know our history to explain why, or understand why we're at today, why certain things are happening. Even things like in Manitoba, the controversy between First Nations rights to hunt, constitutional rights, and the disagreement between First Nations and the Métis people. It's like that conflict goes back 500 years. It's like, if you don't understand the basis of the beginnings of Canada, it's very difficult to understand where we're at today with some of these things. So I just think it's important, and I hope people that listen to it find that important. Steve Rinella is like super good at diving into like the history of hunting and conservation in Canada, or in the United States.
Yeah,
not Canada.
No,
that's partly why we exist, because people were always looking to him. It's like, hey, Steve Rinella, you need to cover this grizzly bear ban up in British Columbia, and it's just like crickets.
Yeah, he's like,
so
no.
I'm just like, okay, this is sad. It's like, it's like Canada needs something.
We need to showcase our Canadians down here.
But he is very good at that, of going into the history, the people, and making those connections between American hunting culture and American wildlife management, and why they have what they have today. He's really, really good at that. So he's been an inspiration for me because of his passion for history, which normally people are like, oh God, history. Like, it's just like that ranks right up there with algebra. And he's brought it down to go like, no, this is your responsibility as a hunter.
And if it's tied into something you're passionate about, like hunting, I think that makes it way more interesting.
Absolutely. So that's what we do on the podcast front.
I love it. So you did mention something about trophy hunting, and that's what I wanted to kind of touch on there. I know that we're, having issues with being able to bring in trophies. Is it into Canada or the States that they're prohibiting bringing in trophies from, like, if you go hunting in Africa or...
So Canada brought in legislation earlier this year. The federal government amended kind of a weird, innocuous little regulation on the importation of plant and animal part regulation.
So that's just
something like this.
Plant and animal parts, like, across the board.
And so what they did is they specifically amended that regulation to prohibit Canadian hunters from bringing back ivory or horn from Africa. So in other words, that ends the ability of a Canadian hunter to go to Africa and hunt, do conservation hunts for elephants or rhino, and bring their trophy home.
And it's so important for those communities that they're going into, right? The hunting, I mean, it feeds their economy. It, like you said, is conservation, species, population
Absolutely.
control. So are they going to see a huge hit from this, a huge impact to their economy and the population of...
I think the big thing about it is Canada's not the driver for international hunting.
Fair. Okay.
The
Would you say
United
that
States are.
okay.
American hunters are. They're the largest hunting community in the world that travels all over the world and hunts and supports economies from Pakistan to
Wow.
Africa to, Borneo, everywhere, right? And so the greatest amount of imports of trophies, animal parts, is to the United States. Interestingly enough, Canada is the largest global exporter of trophies to the United States. 43 or 46% of the global exports of trophies from hunters come from Canada. And the second country is South Africa at 26%. So a big, big gap.
That is huge.
So, in the sense of the big game animals in Africa, the Cape buffalo, the leopards, the elephants, the hippos, those big animals, the rhinos. Canadian hunters were very, very small. And the federal government cited one report that was done on South Africa and said Canadian hunters only made up 6% of the hunting tourists in South Africa, most of which they hunted were the plains game animals, the antelopes and that sort of thing. And so the big five were a lesser part. So it's okay to ban the import of ivory and horn for a segment of Canadian hunters that really don't do anything for the African, economies. And I took exception to that because one, they only cited one country in the largest continent on earth, and said that justifies it, at 6% of the hunters. And, so it doesn't matter to ban. The reason they wanted to ban the imports is because the leading impact of to populations of animals in Africa was poaching and habitat loss.
Okay.
So why is banning the imports of well-managed, government-sanctioned, sustainable hunting practices with community and conservation benefits and going to do anything for poaching and habitat loss? It's exactly the same argument with the gun control, right?
We got to get all these. It must be the same reason that they're banning guns.
It's like there's just something in our federal government's mind of this is how we solve problems. And the other reason I took exception to that was, one, going after those hunters in Canada is not going to help wildlife conservation at all. If anything, it's going to hurt it because of the loss of revenue. And if the mindset is it's okay to ban or impact hunters that make up a small proportion of the hunters in the African hunting tourism industry, then what does that say about hunting in our own country? If 6% of the hunters in South Africa were Canadians, and that's okay to ban their imports, Canada-wide, I believe hunters are only around 2 to 4% of the population. Like that to me sets the stage to say, hunting in Canada, you're just such a small portion of the population, and it's we can easily cut you all off.
Yeah,
because you're just and that just in the philosophical part of the argument, I was like, wait a second, I disagree with that, because then that makes hunting at home for Canadian families,
a little it puts it at risk,
lesser.
I think.
Yeah,
that's
lesser
it. Yeah, it
in
minimizes
the eyes of our federal government. Yep,
definitely. And I think people need to take a look at regulations like that might not directly impact them. I don't go to Africa to hunt, so that doesn't impact me. But they have to realize that any regulations like this are a very slippery slope that will soon trickle down. And
absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest battles, not a battle, a challenge, an opportunity that I need to figure out how to overcome in Canada is getting more people engaged in the hunting community for things that don't impact them personally, whether it's globally, whether it's in the province next to them, the other side of the country. We do, I believe, kind of have a general lackadaisical or soft kind of passive approach to hunting advocacy and political advocacy in this country, where most people are sort of like, Newfoundland, that doesn't matter to me. Oh, grizzly bear hunt in BC, don't care.
Doesn't impact
so sad.
me.
So doesn't impact me. We don't have grizzly bears in Ontario. Who cares? I have literally had people write me and say, you know what? I live in Ontario and I'm not allowed to come to British Columbia to hunt stone sheep unless I hire an outfitter. Newsflash, I don't have $80,000 to come to my own country to hunt a stone sheep in your province. So you know what? You guys can go screw yourself.
Oh, God.
I've literally had that. And it's just like, wow, people.
Not
It's like
so counterproductive. Like,
and for me personally, it's like, I don't care if I ever hunt a moose in northern Manitoba, a polar bear, a seal. I don't care if I ever hunt an elk or a moose in my own backyard. I am here to ensure that every other person in this country and future generations can, if they want to choose. That's my mission. I'm no longer about me. My hunting is like a few hours in the morning with my dog and get a duck or, or a goose or whatever. It's like I'm shifting what's important to me, but what other people want and what other people can have is more important to me than myself right now. And so I personally have a tough time when people are like, don't give a damn to places elsewhere in Canada. And, if we really want to make an impact to these things, it's like, hey, I know you're in British Columbia, I know you're in Alberta, but, people in Nova Scotia have the opportunity to get a spring black bear hunt, because the government has never allowed a spring black bear hunt. Stand up for them, be a voice, fight, write their elected officials and say, hey, good on you. I don't live in Nova Scotia, but I support what you're doing because I'm a Canadian hunter. It's hard to get that.
To get that message
happening.
out. We're such a small group of people nationally that we have got, like, this sounds so cheesy. We've got to stick together. We have to work with each other, support each other. Like you said, yeah, province wide. If it doesn't impact you yet, it's going to.
Yep. You're going to. And that's a tough mess. And, just to be fair, I mean, this does happen in the United States. They're fighting some big battles in Colorado with cougars and Washington State with bears and, and these types of things. And they're doing great stuff down there. They're really getting people out. They're filling commission meetings, with hunters. They're getting, text messages and phone calls and letters to senators and that sort of stuff. But they do have a large proportion of people that are like, oh, you know what? You people up in Montana, as far as I'm concerned, you can leave this country. I don't care what happens to your hunting rights. So they're fighting that same attitude. The Colorado cougar ban. I mean, cougar hunters, hound hunters are a small part of the population, and there's a bad attitude in American hunting culture towards people that hunt with dogs, and especially predators. They're like, no, what they do is wrong. So they have their problems, but it's a numbers game. If 2% of the American population says we're going to stand up and fight for hound hunting in Colorado, that's like millions of people. If 2% of Canadian hunters stand up and say, hey, I'll stand up for grizzly bear hunting in BC, that's like 50 people, right?
Yeah, if you put it like that, that is so true.
So, and Robbie has told me that New Zealanders are the same as Canadians. Very politically passive. They'll get very angry, about things on Facebook, and they'll be like,
on Twitter and all that,
and all this kind of stuff. But when it actually comes time to hey,
put your money where your mouth
to put
is.
up a billboard, go bombard your elected officials and say, no, bow hunting is, ethical. Duck hunting is ethical in Australia, or whatever, or New Zealand and that sort of thing. And so New Zealanders, they're passive like Canadian hunters. They just don't take that step to say, like, I am going to rattle the foundation of this institution to fight for this thing that I believe in and that is good. Canadians are just kind of like, oh well,
that sucks.
We'll just kind of roll over.
Yeah, and I totally on the gun side experienced that whenever I'm trying to encourage people. Whenever the atrocity that was Bill C-21 that was going through, I was like, guys, like, write your MPs, write all of the MPs, write people on SAQ, like, write your senators. And people, well, like, it's going to go through anyways. There's no point. It takes 5 minutes to just, and like, you'd have templates and stuff, copy, paste, send, just do something instead of just complaining online, because that's not going to do anything.
Yeah. And, I think there's a few reasons. I think one of the differences between us and the United States, when it comes to caring, beyond your borders, howl across the borders is the catchphrase that Charles and I kind of coined about a year or so ago.
Howl across the borders?
Howl across the borders. So basically, it's like hunters stand up for hunters and hunting, and we just ignore borders. Doesn't matter if it's in Canada. Doesn't matter if you live in Florida and it's in Washington. Just erase these borders and defend and stand up for hunting. So, but one of the big issues I see is the United States has the federal public land system, which was a big thing that Theodore Roosevelt was in administration, that created this system of federal public lands administered by the federal government. So those are lands that belong to the people of America. If you live in Florida and there is federal public land in Montana, you are, as a Floridan, an owner of that federal public land. You can drive to Montana, buy a non-resident hunting license, and if there are non-resident tags, you can just walk onto federal public land without a guide and hunt. We don't have that in Canada. We have our crown land, our public lands in each of the provinces and territories, but it is ministered, that land and hunting and access to that is ministered by the province or the territory for its residents. And again, history, this goes back to the British North America Act that was signed by the British Parliament of the division of powers, where the provincial and territorial governments were given powers under the B&A Act, which sort of became the Constitution, for its natural resources. So the province of Alberta has the right to manage its wildlife for Albertans.
Okay.
So that difference of not being an owner of land in Alberta when I live in Nova Scotia and I can get an over-the-counter tag and go hunt those big mule deer, or whatever. So people are just like, don't care then.
That's true. It makes it really hard to erase the borders.
So I think that's a barrier. And I also just think it's cliche, but Canadians are just like too darn nice. And when it comes to like putting yourself on the line to fight for hunting and wildlife and conservation and land access, we do just kind of give up. And I see more and more hunters in this country having a defeatist attitude. I just literally saw one the other day about hunting in northern Manitoba and this conflict between Indigenous rights holders and, resident hunters. And somebody was just like, threw in the towel, like, writing's on the wall. This is going to this is the beginning of the end, I think they said. And I'm like, it's just such a defeatist attitude. I talked to a president of a hunting organization near where I live, and he's same thing, trying to get his membership fired up. And literally people just going, you know what? We've been doing this stuff for like years and years and years, writing the government, going to elected officials, signing these petitions, and nothing has got any better. Look, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to ride this out and hunt for myself. And when they ban hunting altogether, I'm done with it. I had a good run. And I'm just going to go do something else. And that attitude is existing there in Canada. And I'm like, I am so
I can't do that.
opposite
Yeah.
of that.
I'll fight till the
When I
bitter
first
end.
started working with Robbie, one of the things he said is the founding ethos of this organization globally is this concept. I second. I don't come first. This is not about me. It's about
Okay.
you.
That's
I'm
how
second. What I get, what I think, whatever is secondary to our job is to put Canadian hunters first, others first, future generations first.
the bigger
And there's
picture.
nothing in it for us. And I tell you, hunting opportunity for Canadian families and the future of it for Canadian kids is my hill to die on. If I have to be the person in my old age that people are going like dragging somebody off of an airplane, kicking and screaming or whatever, and like our trucker rally like leaders that are being drugged through federal court because I want to stand up for Canadian hunters, it's like that's the hill to die on. That's if this goes that way in this country, like I will be that person, and because I believe that much that everyone else should have this right. I think if more of us felt that way, we would be a formidable force for 100,000 people in Ottawa saying, no, you need to reverse this. You need to stand up for this, or we're here to shake the foundations of this facility. Like,
That's it. Like if they're pushing through absolutely crappy, destructive regulation and they don't hear peep from the communities that it's going to impact, they're going to think, well, they don't care and it's going to buy us votes, so let's push this through.
Let's do it. Yeah. Let's run over people on the street because everybody on the sidewalk is cheering, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, the parade float just ran over that kid. Like it's like, gotta
messed up. No, totally.
Yeah.
Do you think that the current government clearly either doesn't understand or chooses not to understand the importance of hunting and hunters in Canada, it seems? Do you think that's going to be a trend going forward? If we get a new government in power next year or whenever there's an election, how do you see things going in the long run, like personally for hunters? I mean, it just always feels like we're under attack no matter who's in government. They're just sort of slowly chipping away at us. Not saying that's a reason to stop fighting, but it just always seems like, we're not safe no matter what.
And I think that's a reality of the world that we live in. Like that's not going to go away. And I don't necessarily think it's like hunting itself or hunters themselves that are being attacked. We've evolved into a society that needs to unleash on something. People need to unleash like such levels of animosity and hatred towards something that they know they're not going to get canceled for. So hunters are just an easy and convenient target. The fact that we kill animals, some of those become antlers that hang on the wall, that's a bonus. Hey, even better. But you're a minority that we can, that for the most part in this country does not represent an ethnic segment. And we become a target so that people can take this like we need to cancel somebody, we need to attack somebody, and governments play off of that because they kind of look and go, oh, look, the kids in the sandbox are picking on that one kid. Rather than go stand up for that one kid, we'll use that to our advantage, right?
Yeah, they kind of feed the
and
fire.
get all the parents of the kids who are the bullies supporting us, right? And then when the parent of the kid and they're like, oh, let's attack that parent or whatever, and then like and suppress it all, and then
that's a good way to put it.
That's kind of what's happening. But the reality is it's still us, it's still hunters, it's still hunting that's under attack, and we have to change that. And I believe, some of the best ways to change that is individual people making a difference within the closest circles to them. Friends, family, coworkers, and the visibility in the community. Because at the end of the day, if whatever government stands up with something and say, we're doing this because of the optics to get votes, and the vast majority of Canadians go, you know what? My neighbor, my brother, my dad, my mother, like, the
Susie
person I
at
go to
the
school with,
bakery.
that they're not like, you got it wrong. They're not like that. He takes deer sausage to my grandfather, every year. Like, they're good people. Stop doing
They're
this, or I'll
safe. They're
vote no. And it's like, that's the critical mass we need. We need the general public to understand who we are, what's true, the true heart of a hunter, to know that we're good, people of good character, of good moral standing in the community. And, if we can include elected officials, MPs, MLAs, in that as well, that's, to me, the biggest difference going forward, where these contrived narratives about good versus evil, and a minority group that's easy to pick on, just isn't going to fly with the Canadian public.
definitely. And I think what you guys are doing at Blood Origins gives people the tools and resources to educate their friends, family, general public. Because,
Yep.
yeah, like you said, if the general public is aware of how they're being misconceived, fed misinformation, then they're going to be able to say, like, no, this isn't right. We're not going to vote for this. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah. And
I feel like I see oh, sorry, go ahead.
and part of it too is like, that's advocacy, that's politics, that's PR, that's marketing, that's purposefully having to make an effort for those things outside of sitting on a hillside with your glasses looking for a deer, right? And trying to get hunters in this country to say, this is the complete package, the complete responsibility I accept. When I get a hunting license for the year, I have to do both these things. I have to educate myself. I have to advocate. I have to be of good moral character. I need to talk to people about this. And then at the end of the day, yeah, I can leave that behind and just go lose myself in the woods, and look for a deer, look for a grouse. That's okay. Just forget about all of this stuff and then go enjoy what you do and what you love about hunting. But then there's a time and place where you can't always just go, God, I hate this politics stuff. I just want people to leave me alone and go hunting. Great. So do I. But that's not the world. We need to stand up for ourselves. Otherwise, you're the kid that's getting beat up in the sandbox and you say, oh, stop, leave me alone. I just want to play with my truck. It's like, no, buddy,
No,
stand up and punch him in the face.
Exactly. That's it. You have a higher responsibility if you want to protect what you love so much. No.
And turn it on and turn it off. Because when you get heavily involved in this advocacy side of things, it's very powerful. It really gets at you, and it can affect you mentally, and it can actually ruin your hunting experience for you. It's really something you have to learn to become a strong advocate, a strong ambassador for hunting, and then be able to like turn it off and just say, this weekend is just about me and my family and having a good time and doing what I always do. And then Monday morning, turning this switch back on. Politicians have to do the same thing. If they go home to their families and go, oh, and then they said this in the house and that, and like, like that or whatever.
Be out of there so quick.
It's like, you know what? When you're done office, give us a call. So
leave work at work. And
I've had to go through that, like, of learning to kind of like park it.
Me too. Absolutely. Sometimes, even then, like sometimes people make comments and it's someone that it's not that you're not going to change their opinion, but it's like, pick your battles. Kind of. Yeah. I'm like, I'm not going to, scold them on this one thing that they said because like, whatever.
No, it's true. It's true. Yeah. So
totally.
It's fun. It's a big game, but yeah, it's a passion. It's what drives me.
Good. Clearly. Absolutely. And I mean, I feel like it's sad to watch our own community almost like eat each other, whether it's black guns versus woodstock guns, or modern sporting rifles versus hunting rifles, and hunters versus sports shooters. Like, you hear the term FUD come up.
We're FUDs, yeah, to some.
I mean, yeah, that's it. Like, I found it very weird that I was referred to as a FUD once, because I was kind of going against what somebody was saying. And like you said, it's an emotionally charged response. People have to have someone to attack, something to attack. So the FUD might be that. And I'm like, dude, I used to shoot IPSC, I sports shoot, like, whatever. I'm not a FUD. So how many people are being called FUDs, if that's even a thing, when they really aren't?
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's a division, in the firearms owner community. If you break down, you've probably got divisions within the sports shooting community as well, between handgun owners and long gun owners.
Oh my gosh,
they're
even
probably
the
at each other.
like IPSC and IDPA, two different like sports, and all in good fun. The IPSC guys make fun of the IDPA guys and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, that happens
different
in
story.
Sports or whatever. But at the end of the day, sportsmanship wins, and your team helps an opponent off the field or whatever. Those sorts of things. The hunting community has its own divisions. There are people that within the hunting community don't like baiting. They don't like grizzly bear hunting. They don't like the use of hounds. So they're all, like kind of divisive, that way as well. It's probably a topic I'm going to talk about maybe on one of the short tooth podcasts. But I think I've really figured out where division comes from, and why we have this segment in our own societies that like to eat our own and attack our own. And it actually comes back to basic human philosophy, in that we all, as human beings, need certain things in our life to be fulfilled people. We all need to have certainty and stability in our life. We all need to have like a little bit of variety. We all need to experience love, and we all need to experience some type of personal growth, and we all need to be able to, at some point, give back.
Yeah.
And the basic, there's, basic human needs. If you are fulfilling, and you can fulfill your needs doing positive things, or you can fulfill your needs by doing negative things. To your brain, it doesn't matter. One of the basic human needs is significance. People like to feel important. They like to feel significant. And that's not a bad thing. It's just we all like to, once in a while, like, hey, good job. Look what you did. You made a big difference there. That does make us feel good, right? But as far as a human need goes, you can achieve the feeling and satisfaction of feeling significant by doing positive things. And you can do it by doing negative things. To our brain, it doesn't matter. It's getting the signal of significance. I'm important. And there's a saying out there, men will die for significance, right? Like, it's like they will just do something so stupid,
so dangerous,
kill themselves, and afterwards knowing that all the guys are going to be like, yeah, buddy,
even if they're not around to experience it.
He sent it. What a
what
epic.
A champ.
Yeah, great. Killed himself, but so like, people will do that. So, part of this is a horrible thing, but it's a little bit of side thing. But suicide bombers, pilots, everything were actually created around the aura of significance. You're literally going to kill yourself for significance and glory.
Yeah,
and they're tapping into that basic human need. And so what I see and I believe is when people attack others, the basic need that they're trying to fulfill is the need of feeling important or significant. And they're doing that to tear other people down. That makes them feel better about themselves.
Yeah.
When you tear someone else down. I'm a bird hunter, you're a hound hunter. I'm going to tear you down in front of everybody because that makes me feel better I feel significant,
Yeah, I
as opposed to finding
can
a
see
positive way.
to be
So,
significant and to stand out and to be different. Yeah,
yeah.
totally. I think it's just changing the way we look at things, our mindset. I mean, people are going to hunt in different ways. We don't need to tear anyone down because of that. You can educate them as to maybe why you don't think it's a good thing. But
I mean, if you follow somebody on social media and they make a post and say, hey, we did out and got this or whatever, and you went on there and say, hey, great job, geez, man, that's just like awesome, or
phenomenal.
whatever. You look so skilled and talented or whatever, right? And the person's like, hey, thanks, that means a lot. I worked really hard at this or whatever. And you might feel some significance from that. Like you feel important because you did. Well, that's like a positive way
Yeah.
of filling up your tank of I need to top up my significance,
I feel like that's so
part
much
of me.
healthier to build everyone
It
up instead of
it
just
it,
like
it is. It
thinking
is.
tearing others down is going to build you up.
Yep. And so that's just part of, human psychology. And the interesting part about that is our need to feel significant, to be loved, to have certainty and stability, and to have a little bit of variety in our life are what are called the basic human needs. If you are living day to day to just barely meet the needs that you have there, you're just surviving day to day. When you can elevate yourself and start filling up your fuel tanks with growth and learning for yourself, becoming a better person, and giving back to others, giving back to the community, that's the place in life where you're starting to feel fulfilled, what your life is about, and you experience growth. One, you're just filling the needs to basically survive. The others, you're actually growing as a person. And there's a saying that goes with this that doesn't matter whether you're a plant, an amoeba, or a human being, if you're not growing, you're dying. And people that are tearing each other down in this community, I believe, are struggling as people. They're barely surviving, day to day. And so that's one of their needs, is to go on and thrash other people in their community.
That's it. And as much as I hate to have sympathy for anybody that's going to make anyone else feel like complete garbage, I do also have to think there's something going on in their personal life, in their head, whatever. Something's not right, and that's why they feel the need to lash out at others.
Yeah, exactly. So it's almost sort of like some of that, kind of like just feel pity for those people or
That's
whatever,
it.
and
Yeah.
maybe reach out and say, hey,
Do you need help?
everything
Do
okay?
you want to chat?
Kind of, yeah, as opposed to then you doing the same thing. Like, well,
That's the worst thing you can do.
I'm gonna bash your sandcastle down, so the one that you just bashed down is now taller than yours, kind of
That's
thing.
it.
So
I mean, if anyone's trying to tear down, what I'm doing, what I stand for, who I am as a person, you don't fight back with the same ammunition they're throwing your way. You change it up, be positive, be the bigger person, teach them how they should
yeah,
maybe be interacting by leading by example.
absolutely. Yeah, there's just so many challenges and so many opportunities. So, for the folks out there that are like, think there's no hope, that have given up, that want to throw in the towel, part of what I'm trying to do is to inspire people that there is hope. Things can get better. It's like and that's part of like, going back and looking at the history of the country. It's just like, yeah, there were dark times. There were wildlife populations that almost went extinct. There were revolutions. There was this against this group, and it's just these
And history can tell us
fluctuations.
so
And
much about like our present and our future that, yeah, you're right. It's so important to educate ourselves on what's happened in the past.
so, yeah, there's downs right now in the hunting community and politics in this country, but there's also a lot of ups. There's a lot of good things. wonderful things that, are still available, to us in this country and worth celebrating.
Yeah.
And there's things that we have to work hard at, things that are in a bit of a downturn, but in 50 years from now, we might look back and go, hey, remember when we fixed that problem?
Exactly, for sure. And
it'll happen.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I mean, we've got a lot of new people stepping up to the plate, showing the world who and what hunters are. A lot of organizations that are, growing and trying to incorporate a more positive approach to sharing what hunting is. So yeah, it's going to get better. People just need to work together, not be, jerks.
Keep
positive, keep at it, keep fighting.
Keep at it, keep, little wins, little victories, support each other.
Totally.
Look far out as opposed to just immediately what's happening right now. Look at the big picture.
Yeah.
And look farther forward. So everybody says, oh, we should do this, for the resource or for the kids or for the grandkids. It's like, yeah, we should. So actually do that. Act now for your unborn grandchildren.
Yeah. Actions speak way louder than words, and there's so many reasons hunting needs to exist. I can't believe that I've already commandeered an hour of your time. That went by
That's
so
awesome.
freaking fast.
Oh, great conversation.
That was
and now
so
people
good.
can go, what a horrible person he is.
Oh, yeah, you're the worst.
I know.
Clearly.
It's an honor.
Well, honestly, thank you so much for this. I have to have you back on sometime because I have so many more questions.
Absolutely.
Good. Okay.
Absolutely. Anytime. Love it. Love what you're doing. Love the branding.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's the oxymoron almost. I hope, anyways.
Yes. I'm not fooling you guys.
Horrible hunters are not so horrible.
That's it. Exactly. Oh, amazing. Well, can you let people know where they can find you? Because I think it's extremely important for people, like, not just saying this, I think it's really important for people to check out Blood Origins and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So the global organization on social media is just Blood Origins. Bloodorigins.com is our website. There's all types of stuff you can get involved in there and supporting the work that we do. And specifically in Canada, it's Blood Origins Canada, Blood Origins _ Canada is social media. And on the main bloodorigins.com website, you'll find under affiliates, you'll find a little bit about us in Blood Origins Canada, who we are, what we do, our podcast that we talked about earlier. And that's where we live.
I love it. Thank you so much. I think this was a really good conversation. I think this will be a really good eye-opener for everybody that was able to join us on this little journey.
Just like our Hunter Conservationist podcast, we covered a range of topics from ear to ear. People are going to
get whiplash.
Whoa, what just happened?
Yeah. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed. And thank you so much again.
You're welcome. Anytime.